I'm excited for today. Guys, I feel like this is an app that you'll probably download while we're talking about it. Pay is pretty cool. I've gone through the docs and watched some of Sid's walkthroughs. So we'll dig into that today rather than me trying to leak any of that or explain it. We'll let it come from his mouth. But zooming out, big picture, this is a new mini series we're tackling. We're calling it Stablecoins from the Future. And we want to talk with projects that are building the future, innovating in the payment space, wallets, stablecoins, and the intersection of all of those. If they're building something new, cool, we want to talk to them. So that's why we've got Sid Gandhi here today. Sid is the CEO of Polybase Labs, and he's working on a project called Payy, which, like I said, is pretty cutting edge to say the least. So I'll let you hear more about that from him. But Sid, thanks for joining us and making the time. Excited to chat.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on.
How are you doing today?
It's a good day. It's a Friday. Getting a lot of stuff done today. Excited to talk about payments, privacy, crypto, and making it useful for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Pay certainly does that. The tweet you just shot out about this space makes me feel like you spend a lot of your life on Twitter spaces. Is that accurate or no?
I do spend a lot of my life on Twitter, which is like part of my job description, I guess.
Yep.
But
Yep.
recently I've been doing Twitter Spaces. I think a lot of the stuff we do at Pay, we simplify everything, right? So if you've downloaded the app, like we basically abstracted everything you can abstract. And I think one of the downsides to that sometimes is like you have to explain what's going on behind the scenes. Is also what I'm excited to do on these spaces is like dig into how we're actually doing all the crazy stuff we're doing.
Yes, bingo. That's such a great way of putting it because if you don't know, it just kind of looks like magic because it's such an improvement over the typical UI for crypto, which is why I think this project has legs. I should also introduce myself, by the way. I'm Sean Merrick on Twitter. My handle is Silk is Money, so I'm the face and the name behind the co-hosting here today for those who want to know. And Sid, that way you're not just talking with a logo. It's Sean over here, so just so we know. Um, yeah, well, let's just jump in. I love your statement, Sid, in your bio that crypto without privacy is crazy, and that's a pretty strong. And at this point in where we are in like user understanding, you could even say it's like an edgy take, not quite mainstream in how people are thinking about the future of finance. So I'd love to hear just your own progression of insight that led you to that light bulb moment, to the formation of that belief. Could you talk us through that part of your story a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I'll give a little introduction on myself as well, like how I got into the space, like why I actually care about crypto and what we're building. So, like you mentioned, Sean, I'm Sid Gandhi, the co-founder and CEO of Polybase Labs. We're building Pay. Previously, I was an iOS engineer at Apple, which means I built a bunch of stuff you probably use on your iPhone every day. I was then working on autonomous vehicle software, petabyte scaling, kind of data tooling for that data at a company called Cruise in San Francisco. And then 2 years ago, my co-founder and I started Polybase Labs to use some of the new cryptography with ZK, but actually make it like useful and put it in people's hands in a use case that actually, I think like is not just more infrastructure, but you can actually do real things in the real world with. And it's been about 12 years since I first read the Bitcoin white paper and bought my first Bitcoin. And I was talking to someone else about this, and the first sentence of the Bitcoin white paper is is just beautiful, and I think it defines like exactly what our mission is at Pay. And if I can quote it here, this is how it goes. Satoshi said, "A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution, right? And that was written more than 15 years ago. And I think we've had a lot of projects, a lot of blockchains, a lot of protocols, a lot of white papers since then. But really, we haven't achieved that vision. And that's what we're really excited about with Pay is we're actually quite far in achieving that vision and bringing peer-to-peer electronic cash to people. So that's kind of my genesis of why I care about crypto. It is from that magical moment of being like, wait, we can have a financial system without other people controlling our money and taking fees and making things slower. Like that's pretty amazing. That's foundational. Um, but if it's been 10 years and I haven't seen that actually in the hands of people, that kind of upset me. And so that's why we started Polybase Labs to solve that.
Yeah. And your statement, crypto without privacy is crazy. It makes me feel like what you've built with Pay, you wouldn't consider it worthwhile unless it had that privacy component. So, yeah, what gets you going with privacy? Why do you see that as essential utility for the kind of, payment system that you're looking to build?
Yeah, if crypto is to be useful in the real world outside of speculation, you have to ask yourself this question. If my bank account transactions and my credit card transactions and my purchase history on Spotify or on Shopify or Stripe was public to the world forever, would I be comfortable with using that system? And, I do believe we are probably one or two steps ahead of the general population here. I think most people see crypto as a speculative casino, and that's fine. That's how things get started. And I think that's how the incentivization gets started to move money over from fiat to crypto. But, in the coming years, like, you know, people are going to start doing real world things with crypto. We're already seeing Stripe, for example, partner with Solana and USDC to make purchases online. And like, dude, I make some weird purchases online. Like, I don't want the whole world to see that publicly forever, right? That's going to come back to haunt me. It's going to come back to haunt anyone. And so that's why I say, like, crypto without privacy is just fundamentally broken for real world usage. And this, I'm just talking about like regular people like you and me. What about businesses, right? People paying salaries on chain, people paying their customer, getting paid by their customers or paying vendors. That's like real, business secrets that could be leaked, or people's salaries being public to the world forever. So that to me is just impractical. It's scary, and frankly, it's just not going to work. And so I see, excitement among payments picking up in the last few months. Like, Base and Coinbase Wallet is like really pushing this idea of like, oh, you can pay for your coffee. Um, that's awesome. There's a bunch of other payment apps on various blockchains, but it's like, hey, these are cool like UI experiments, maybe, but practically, you just can't do payments on chain without privacy.
Yeah, yeah. And if we could, we wouldn't want to. I don't think we want to live in that future. So, give us a quick pitch on Pay. What is it? What does it do? And then who do you hope will use it?
Yeah, so I think at a very high level, we have an opportunity to build a self custodial bank. And what that means is think about the things that banks let you do, right? They're foundational to our world today. They let you store money safely, they let you spend your money easily, they let you invest or earn interest on your money, and then they let you borrow for things that you might want to buy. And so these are the four core pillars of what I would call consumer retail banking. Today, we actually have built all of the, you know, underpinnings of that with crypto, with stablecoin, with decentralized finance, but they're still unusable or impractical for most people to use in their daily lives. And so that's what we're building at Pay. We're building the world's first self custodial, self sovereign bank account where you own your money, right? Because it's self custodial. No one can take it away, no one can ever freeze it. It's private, So no one can track you. Google can't index, the blockchains like they're doing today and start tracking you on what you're buying and purchasing. And it's really, really easy to use. And I would almost say, like, Pay is the only like crypto self-custodial product that anyone around the world in any country, no matter what age they are, if they have a phone, they can use it. And I just have not seen a single product in crypto like that. And so, like, that's the vision, that's what we're building. And I kind of talked about those four pillars: save money, spend money, invest money, and borrow. We've built and shipped the first two of those, right? So you can save your money in a stable currency, and then you can spend your money by paying friends and eventually in other ways to pay merchants and things like that. And what we're working towards now in the future is being able to invest that money and earn interest using DeFi, still self custodial, still decentralized, and then being able to borrow eventually. And so that's kind of rounding out the vision of what we want to work on over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I mean, correct me if my understanding is wrong. Like, I watched your walkthrough and went through the docs and stuff, but I mean, the fact that when somebody downloads Pay, they do not have to create a wallet is amazing. And then they can, bump in funds from different routes or whatever. But that no wallet piece is like a huge barrier to entry removed. And I agree with what you're saying. Like, the UI looks so slick and simple that it really does just, it's like a light beam of hope for people who are outside of crypto being able to access and really make this whole space more usable to people. So tell us more about, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but there's so much more going on behind the curtain than what the user is seeing in that simple interface. So like the no wallet creation thing, how do you achieve that behind the scenes? And then I guess kind of with that, what do you think this design opens up for users that isn't possible otherwise, that isn't possible without this level of simplicity?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, let's think about like the user experience of like what we want to accomplish and kind of work back from that and talk about how we implemented it. So, when I think about money, you think about like cash, right? Cash is so simple, it's so powerful. You don't need to sign up to anything to use cash. You don't need to give your phone number or email to use cash, right? You don't need to take a selfie and do KYC. It's an instant and immediate exchange of value. Now the question is, how do you do that in a digital way? So today, like if you want to use a bank account or even Venmo or whatever, you have to do this complicated login, KYC verification, and that just adds barriers to that seamlessness that cash had. And when you look at crypto solutions, yeah, you don't have the KYC for MetaMask, but like, dude, good luck trying to get anyone like really outside of crypto to use MetaMask and like not lose money or not do anything wrong, right? And so that's the kind of user experience that we start with. Now, to actually accomplish that, when you open Pay for the first time, we generate a public private key pair for you behind the scenes. And then what we do is we store the private key in your iCloud backup if you're on iPhone, or your Android backup if you're on an Android device. We do that automatically, and that's like synced. So you don't have to do anything. That's automatically safe. It's automatically synced. You never even have to see it. If you want to export your key, you can do that. So it's still non-custodial. We never have access to your key. It's still there for you to export. You can write down the seed phrase. You can, put it in your Google Drive, whatever. But that's like, I would consider that an advanced feature, right? So for a regular person, if you send this to your grandma, like she doesn't have to worry about that. Um, the second thing we do, I think that's quite amazing, is being able to send money to someone without them even knowing how you're sending them money. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say today you want to pay someone Like in the US, we have Venmo, or let's say you want to send a bank transfer. The other person, the recipient, has to have the app. They have to be in network already. And that's a barrier. And so what we did was you can send money to anyone, anywhere, regardless of whether they have the app, how old they are, how sophisticated they are with technology, using a link. And you can send that link using WhatsApp or Signal or email, or you can, write down that link and send it via carrier pigeon. It doesn't matter. That link is the cash. And kind of talking about how we do that, we actually create an ephemeral wallet. And when you pay someone, you load funds into this ephemeral wallet. It's like taking cash and putting it into an envelope. And then you send that to someone, and then they withdraw it from that envelope into their account. And all of that happens automatically when you tap the link. The other really cool thing is it's all private. And I think it helps to define what privacy means. So, like, let's say you send some money to someone on Ethereum today. The sending address, your address, the receiving address, and the amount is all public forever. On Pay, what we've done is we shield the sender, the receiver, and the amount. So if you go to our Explorer and you look up a transaction, there's just a bunch of hashes, which are just like data representations, but you can't really understand or learn anything about the transaction from that. But I want to be careful here and say, like, we're not Tornado Cash. So you can't use Pay as a mixer because the links between transactions are still tracked and maintained, which means that, let's say, someone needs to come in and see if like hacked funds are flowing through the network, or you want to check if like, a bad actor or illicit money is trying to be withdrawn through the network, you can trace that back. But you'll never be able to see how much people are sending to each other on the network. That's a really key distinction.
That's incredible. I mean, the only question that comes up to my mind, I guess the biggest attack vector potentially is this key being stored in like an iCloud. And you having worked at Apple, I'm sure you know 8,000 times more about iCloud security than I do. But what would you say to somebody that like has a concern there or is uncomfortable with that architecture? What
Yeah,
perspective do you have on that?
yeah. Really good point. And today, theoretically, yes, if someone hacks iCloud, they could get access to your key, although, they're all end-to-end encrypted and stuff. So there's very, very, very unlikely that would happen. Um, what our solution to that is what we call key sharing. And so this is something we're actively working on right now. You'll be able to actually invite your friends on Pay to be key guardians. And what that basically means is you actually split up your key. And we kind of use a sophisticated, like, new cryptography to be able to do that, called multi-party compute. And you actually send parts of your key to, let's say, it could be your parents or, your friend or someone that you trust. And you can actually add a bunch of people. So let's say you add 8 people that are now kind of have parts of your key. No one person can actually assemble the full key and steal your funds. What you can do is you can set a threshold. So you can say, you know what? If like 4 of my friends or trusted contacts get together, they can help recover that key. And so now you don't have to trust one party. And by the way, like, one of your guardians could be Apple. So you can store, part of your key in iCloud. You can store part of your key in LastPass or whatever you trust. And so we're going to be able to give people that choice of how they want to split up their key. But the UX, and this is called social recovery. You may have seen it on Twitter or whatever, read papers about it. All the current kind of implementations are kind of, I would say, like experiments or toy implementations. We're going to make it the same level of slick UX for social recovery that you have for payments on Pay today. It's going to be like you'll be able to like tap your phone and airdrop someone, a piece of your key, and it's kind of all secure and done that way. So that would be my answer to, like, hey, your private key is stored in iCloud right now. Yeah, we're working on that. We definitely understand that's a concern.
Oh man, what a cool feature. Like using MPC for that is a really neat solution. And I couldn't help but think about Horcruxes in Harry Potter, breaking it up and for safety. Of course, that didn't work out well for Voldemort, and you're doing this for good purposes. But yeah, MPC, awesome solution there. Sort of a fun question for you here, a little bit different direction. I'm curious if you have like any dream partnerships or integrations that you have, maybe like a side version of that. Do you have vision or desire that people would be able to use this for actual payments with merchants, like tap to pay? Is that something that you're toying with at all? So, and you don't have to like name specific projects or anything. You can be as specific or non-specific as you want, but just anything you want to share there about what you're hoping for down the road.
Yeah, totally. So I think one of the biggest challenges with crypto payments is on and off ramping. So the crypto part, we've built already. We have the blockchain pay network running underneath. Those payments are free. They're gasless. They're abstracted. Amazing. But the question is, how do you use crypto now to interface with the real world, right? How do you buy coffee with it realistically? Not in a demo, but every coffee shop in the world. And so the answer to that is being able to interface with things like credit cards. And so that's something we're really interested in is how do you make crypto usable in the real world? So on the off ramp side, credit cards are a really good way to do that. But you have to design them in the right way. And all of the current, quote unquote, crypto cards, like I think MetaMask just announced, they're going to do a card with Mastercard. Um, it's to be seen what kind of product MetaMask makes there because they haven't really made too many changes in the last 10 years of like their actual wallet. So, but that could be kind of cool. But the problem is those are all going to be public, right? And so now all of your spending is going to be public. And so we're building it in a really kind of meaningful way and in a thoughtful way. And so I'm interested in seeing more um, partners there that can help us do that. We're in discussions with a bunch of them, but if you know of other people that are issuing crypto cards, we're really interested in partnering with them. On the
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and then on the on ramp side, one of the most exciting things, and again, it's a demo, it's not really production that I've seen is ZK P2P. And kind of what they've done is used ZK technology to be able to prove that you have sent funds to someone on a TradFi platform. And so they can use that to allow people to on ramp crypto, but using things like Venmo or Revolut. Um, Unfortunately, it's not built out as a production solution, so we can't use that today in Pay. But if there are people working on production level solutions for something like that, I think peer to peer trustless on ramping is essentially a requirement for this transition from TradFi to crypto. Because today, if you think about how people on ramp, it's either through an exchange directly or it's through like Binance P2P, which is like a majority of the on ramping that we've seen from our customer conversations. It's a terrible experience. And it's like dubious legal status as well. And again, it's using a centralized exchange, so that can get shut down. Your funds can be lost and frozen and stuff like that. So if we can solve that would be tremendous. And we are looking actively for partners in that space.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with both of those, well, one in particular, and whether it's now or offline later, I can definitely make some connections for you there. But I think there's a large contingent of user, like people who are already in the crypto space for sure, who value decentralized stables. And I'm curious if you have had thoughts, and I'm sure you have, about like, would you ever add a decentralized stable to the app? I know you don't want to like overcomplicate it. It's just USDC at this point, but thoughts on opening things up for people that value that decentralized piece.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I think I tweeted recently that like, look, it's 2024, like users don't care about what blockchain you're on anymore. And so that's kind of this idea that like over time, the way things are implemented will fade away, and you'll just have the value from these products. And so the way we've abstracted chains, we also are abstracting away stablecoins. And so today, like, yes, we're only USDC under the hood. The reason we started with that is because it has some nice properties in the sense that it's easy to on and off ramp. There's a lot of liquidity, and it's a known and trusted brand name. But it also has some downsides. It's centralized. It is transparent, but it's not algorithmically transparent. And so what we want to do is be able to start using other stablecoins under the hood that give us different properties. Now, maybe there's a world in kind of in advanced settings where you can actually choose which stable you want to denominate your savings in, right? So if you're a hardcore USDT guy, cool, we'll let you do that. If you want to use like a fully decentralized stable, like you'll be able to use that. And so this idea of stable coin abstraction is really important to us as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Um, are you familiar with like Silk at all, Sid? I don't want to assume that like we're pretty. I mean, Silk's been out for a year, kind of early in the game, but it might be interesting to you to share a tiny snapshot of what the journey's been like, what it is, and what we're doing with payments. Is that familiar to you at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen you guys on Twitter, but yeah, happy to hear more about it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean the main idea behind the Silk stablecoin is that it would resist inflation via, instead of a USD peg, a flexible basket of assets, currencies, and commodities, which includes Bitcoin, gold, and then four selected currencies. And so it was back tested for 40 years of data to be able to beat any given fiat currency. I mean, it beat USD by 9.5% in the last year. And so that's part of why when you look at Silk, the peg doesn't sit at 100. It's designed to preserve purchasing power over time with that measured dose of volatility that you get from a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of gold in peg. And so we're seeing it do that since its launch a little over a year ago. And then what's really sweet, through a partnership that we have with Finicard, I think their Twitter handle is Finacash. You should be able to find it, but they offer like a crypto card or whatever. But because they're built on secret, leveraging TEE privacy, like their wallet and their payments and all of that, like built with privacy, so people can. And I've done this. Like I've gone paid for things using Silk for my family with a Finicard, and it's a private payment. They're early on in their batches. It
I love
was it
that.
was even no KYC, so pretty sweet to be able to do that. So you're paying with a private stablecoin uh, that resists inflation, and that's not too shabby. That's not too shabby. So
That's absolutely
better
cool,
than,
dude. You gotta
yeah,
get me a card. I want to try that out. That's awesome.
yeah. You can, uh, we can onboard you there for sure. So just for you to have that knowledge of like knowing who we are, who you're talking to, and stuff like that's why we wanted to have you on, because there's such a similarity in vision and what you're about. Like all the respect to what you guys are up to there. It's super cool. I'm
Yeah, and I
curious.
think the SOAP
Yeah.
protocol, like I think you're solving a real problem there, which I really like to see. I think in terms of stable coins, it's definitely differentiated as well, which is awesome. And the fact that you're live and working is also awesome. So like I would say it's gonna take a village to get to the goal that we want to get to. I think people working on real world non-speculative use cases is like that's really exciting to me, even if it doesn't feel super exciting to others.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I'm also curious, do you have anybody that like any other projects in the privacy space that you just have respect for? You're vibing with. You're kind of watching out the side of your eye while you're building and you really appreciate what they're up to. Anybody like that that you would shout out?
Yeah, a bunch of people. Like I think folks doing the zkVM space to make uh, privacy programmable. I think it's a huge endeavor. So I'll mention a couple there. Aztec actually has been in the space for so long. I was just talking to Zach, their CEO, on a Twitter space yesterday. Have been following them for a while. I talked to Uma from Succinct. They're doing amazing stuff as well. Risk Zero, of course. And it's actually funny. We love like the privacy ZK space. And I think like what we've seen is this explosion of attention there. But to be honest, most of it is still in the infrastructure space. There are actually not that many like usable by regular people privacy protocols, and so that's what I'm more interested in seeing. Um, Obviously, like shout out to Zcash. Like we take a lot of inspiration from Zcash. Um, I think they were one of the first like actually successful privacy protocols, although usability is a little low because exchanges no longer allow you to offboard and it got a little complicated. But yeah, I think they pioneered a lot of this stuff. So we definitely look up to them a lot.
Yeah. One of the other things, and there was something that you just said that kind of like triggered this in my brain. I kind of want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, and it blew my mind when I read it in the docs. That basically the vision is that within this super simple, easy to use app, people will be able to interact with DeFi protocols without having to feel like they're interacting with DeFi protocols. Like, so you're abstracting that away to from the experience. I mean, if that is correct, which is what my understanding was, can you like say more about that? Because that would be an incredible achievement as far as usability and like giving people access to yield in your app, all of that. So anything you want to say there?
Yeah, and I'll start again with the user experience we want to offer people, right? So let's say you on ramp some funds into Pay. Now you have stable coins sitting there, right? And most people like in this day and age want to start like investing money. They want to earn money on their money, and so the question is, how do you enable people to do that in the easiest way possible? So one path that most L2s or blockchains take is they build out programmability. They give some grants to some developers. They fork Uniswap. They fork Aave. They fork Compound, and they launch their versions of that on the chain. Then they try to build up liquidity by giving incentives, et cetera. We've seen this playbook 1,000 times now, right? Unfortunately, that playbook is kind of dying out because those incentives are starting to show that they're actually not that great, right? Airdrops are kind of shitty. People are being rugged on these different projects. So we said, look, let's step back. Let's take a holistic approach to this. And so what we did is said, look, there's already awesome protocols that are launched on really well-regarded chains, right? So if you think about just Aave on Ethereum, right? It's been in operation for I think 8 years, 7 years now. Um, Performs really well, has a ton of liquidity. So what we did is we said, in one tap, a user on Pay can deposit their USDC funds on Aave and start earning yield. Right? How do you make that possible? So we built out a bunch of tech that what we call pay intent. And essentially what happens is like you pre-sign a bunch of transactions on your phone. Again, like we don't have your private key. Those are all done on device. And then those transactions are routed to a destination chain, let's say Ethereum in this case, and then deposited into the Aave pool. So we actually have an internal prototype of this working. We are basically trying to like user test it and figure out like what the best way to actually launch this is.
Man, that is some really, really neat stuff. Like on the edge, truly making it accessible for people, that is super, super cool. Anything else like on your mind that you wish I would have asked you about, or that you want to share before we kick it to the audience for questions for a few minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I think we yap a lot on Twitter, but I think the best way to understand Pay is to just use it. Like I can say 1,000 words about it, but the first 10 seconds of using it, as you know, man, like you get an understanding of like what we've accomplished. And then if you go read the docs, you're like, oh shit, like all of this is going on under the hood, right? So yeah, I would say just use it, send some money to your friends. In fact, like DM me on Twitter for the next like 10 minutes. I'll send anyone who DMs me on Twitter like some money to play around with. How about that?
That's an offer. That's pretty cool. Yeah,